You wake up already behind, not because the world demanded it, but because you demanded it of yourself last night and broke that promise with the first lazy reach for the snooze button. One alarm, then two, then three, until the weight of your own resistance finally drags you into the day. Before even touching the floor, you pick up your phone, and there it is, an entire universe of noise spilling into your half-conscious mind. The headlines are grim, the influencers smug, the celebrities posturing with their polished smiles and sculpted lives. And yet, behind your disgust, a quiet thought slips in. You know you're sharper than them, more creative, more capable, maybe even more beautiful. But none of that matters because you are still lying in bed, still watching life through a glowing rectangle, still doing nothing. It makes you sick, but not sick enough to stop scrolling. Eventually, you pull yourself out from under the sheets, fumbling toward your ritual of survival, a bitter coffee in one hand and a cigarette in the other. You tell yourself that today will be different, that the haze of yesterday will not repeat itself, that you will finally sit down and create, produce, become who you know you can be. Yet, in the silence between sips, the hunger for distraction returns. You drift into video games, hours slipping away in digital victories that mean nothing once the screen goes dark. You reply to texts, laughing with friends about nothing at all, until the laughter fades and the emptiness creeps back. A phone call carries you through another hour, and then the excuse of exhaustion brings you into the false mercy of a nap. The day melts, not with the force of decision, but with the gentle decay of avoidance. And as the evening light spills into the room, you feel the weight of your failure. Again. This is when the voice begins its familiar whisper. What have you accomplished? Look at the others, those people whose faces and names fill your feeds, who have carved out something tangible while you have been busy circling yourself. You call yourself an artist, yet no art emerges from your hands. You believe yourself to have talent, yet it sits there like a dormant seed, waiting for water you never pour. Your life is not tragic, but it is unbearably hollow, filled with relationships that are fine, jobs that are fine, beliefs that are fine, everything tolerable, yet nothing that makes your blood race. You drown the unease with thirst traps, with doom scrolling, with anything that can keep you sedated just long enough to avoid the confrontation. And at night, when the cycle resets, you lie there waiting, convincing yourself that someday you will wake up different, someday you will grow up, someday the spark will return. But someday never arrives, because every day is spent hiding from it. Carl Jung gave a name to this state: puer aeternus, the eternal child, the one who refuses to commit to the burdens of existence. You may know it as Peter Pan syndrome, the man-child, the dreamer who never lands. It is not laziness exactly, nor stupidity, nor even lack of ambition. It is fear, fear of stepping into reality, fear of responsibility, fear of becoming ordinary, fear of failing. So instead of living, the pure drifts, existing in a half-life where each moment is detached and unreal, like watching shadows on a wall. Jung described it as the provisional life, where one becomes a spectator, floating ghost-like through experiences without ever grasping them fully, without ever tasting the rawness of being truly alive. The eternal child carefully avoids any direction, because to move decisively is to risk the possibility of collapse. They say no to stable work, not because they cannot do it, but because it feels beneath them and simultaneously overwhelming. They shy from education, fearing it will reveal their limits. They run from relationships, terrified that closeness will expose the fragility of their image. They even sabotage opportunities that arrive neatly at their feet, convincing themselves it isn't the right time, isn't the right person, isn't the right fit. The truth is simpler. To choose is to close doors. To commit is to face the inevitable truth that everything ends: love, careers, bodies, even dreams. The pure cannot bear that. It is easier to exist forever in the space of I could have than to risk finding out, I tried, and it wasn't enough. So the days blur together, filled with momentary highs and hollow comforts, each one a postponement of the inevitable confrontation with responsibility, failure, disappointment, and mortality. This avoidance is not an accident, it is the very strategy of survival for the eternal child. If they never step forward, then they never fall. If they never commit, then they can always claim they were meant for more. And so they linger, endlessly circling, endlessly waiting, endlessly unfulfilled. Nostalgia becomes both a comfort and a trap. The eternal child looks back at the intensity of youth, at the raw spark of first love, first passion, first discovery, and clings to that moment as though it were the only time life ever truly mattered. There is something intoxicating about beginnings, about the sense that everything is still possible and nothing has yet been wasted. The first kiss, the discovery of a hidden talent, the rush of falling in love, the thrill of finding your calling, all of these memories become golden anchors. And in that remembrance, the present feels pale, the future feels threatening. To grow older means to step away from the blossoming into the withering, from possibility into limitation. It feels safer to linger in the shade of Sylvia Plath's fig tree, surrounded by endless branches of what could be, than to pick just one and live with the knowledge that every other branch will wither away. The eternal child convinces themselves that there is no rush, that choices can wait, that the beauty of life is in keeping every door ajar. Our culture reinforces this illusion. The songs that move millions rarely glorify the steady rhythms of a committed life. They sing instead of young love, of longing, of the chase, of the insecurity that comes before certainty. Stories that dominate our books and films revolve around the wandering protagonist in search of meaning, not the settled figure who found it and stayed. Even when those tales end in resolution, we are rarely shown what comes after the years of repetition, compromise, and quiet endurance. And so we learn to idolize the search itself, not the arrival, to find romance in indecision and excitement in detachment. Is it any wonder, then, that so many drift endlessly, convincing themselves that to never choose is to remain free? But the irony is bitter. Many of those who live as eternal children are not incompetent or foolish at all. Quite the opposite. They are intelligent, imaginative, creative, and often naturally gifted. In school, they were praised as prodigies, the best in art class, the ones who could learn quickly, who could speak clearly, who grasped what others could not. Encouragement surrounded them, and for a time it was deserved. Yet the tragedy lies not in the absence of ability, but in the refusal to step into the arena where ability is tested. Because to test oneself is to invite failure. To risk failure is to risk discovering you are not as exceptional as you believed. And so they cling to the safety of potential, repeating quietly to themselves, "I could have been great. I could have been successful. I could have been extraordinary." The dream remains intact only because it is never placed against reality. This is why the distractions of Neverland are so appealing. Drugs, alcohol, sex, adrenaline, these are not simply indulgences, but tools of avoidance. They drown the call of responsibility and silence the gnawing voice that demands action. In their best moments, the eternal children even find companions, others like them who agree to preserve the illusion together. They form bonds that are merry and exciting, encouraging each other's fantasies, mocking the world of adults as if maturity itself were corruption. For a while, it feels noble, even heroic. The system is broken, they say. The race is rigged, so why even bother? Better to float above it all. Better to remain untainted. Better to keep the purity of untested potential alive. And yet, when the nights grow long and the friends grow distant, when lovers vanish and opportunities fade, loneliness inevitably arrives. It does not last long in a world of apps and endless connections. But it stings, and beneath the sting is the truth. What they fear most is not insignificance, but commitment. Because commitment would make the dream real and, therefore, destroy it. But here lies the turning point, the moment where change becomes possible. Jung insisted that growing up does not mean sacrificing vitality or killing creativity. It means integrating them into something larger, something enduring, something real. The eternal child fears that responsibility is a cage, but in truth, responsibility is the structure that allows freedom to grow. A dream cannot survive without form, and form cannot survive without commitment. To continue drifting forever is not liberation, but stagnation. To take root in the world is not the end of possibility, but the beginning of transformation. This is why one must learn the courage to be normal. At first, it sounds like surrender. To ride the bus, to clock in at work, to study late into the night, to pay bills and endure traffic, these seem like the death of individuality, the burial of potential. Yet they are not. They are the soil in which growth occurs. To step into society is to admit that the world is larger than you, that life requires exchange, endurance, sacrifice. It is to shed the illusion that you are the main character floating above the masses, and to embrace the truth that you are part of something greater, that you have a role to play in the story of existence. The mundane is not the enemy of greatness, it is its foundation. The way forward requires risk, failure, humility, and above all, choice. You cannot wait for someone to save you, because no one is coming. You cannot wait for clarity, because clarity only comes after movement. You cannot keep circling the surface of life, because eventually the surface breaks and time runs out. To remain forever in potential is to die never having lived. The world is already uncertain, already collapsing in places, already demanding far more of us than simple drifting. Ecological disaster, political extremism, economic inequality, these forces grow every day, and they will not be answered by people who hide from maturity. They require those who step forward, who commit, who accept the burdens of reality and dare to create within them. So, the question that remains is not what you could have been, not what you might be someday, but what you are willing to choose now. What do you care about deeply enough to sacrifice for? What matters enough that you will endure failure, disappointment, and pain to pursue it? What is worth surrendering the endless carousel of distractions for? Because the truth is harsh but liberating. Nobody will live your life for you. Nobody will hand you the path. Nobody will guarantee your success. You have danced along the surface long enough, lulled by the romance of potential. Now is the time to plunge, to commit, to find out what your life actually is when lived, not merely imagined. And in that plunge, far from losing your youth, you may discover the true vitality that only reality can give.